Alright, what's going on, guys? DLC. That's the big thing on everybody's mind right now. Elden Ring has been out for over a month now, and a lot of people are starting to finish the game. And one of the big things they're realizing is that the game just doesn't hit as hard the second time. It's still a 10 out of 10, don't get me wrong, but when you know what to expect and all the secrets start to be uncovered, there is a feeling of desire for something more. And so that question becomes, are we going to be getting DLC for Elden Ring? And if we do, what might that look like? So today we're going to be breaking all of that down, and there's been a lot of really interesting discoveries that seem to be pointing to a DLC, and we're going to talk about that. But before we get into that, we need to talk about the elephant in the room. Sekiro. As you all know, Sekiro did not have DLC, and this has led a lot of people to believe that From Software might be going away from the DLC route. However, I do not buy into this mindset, and there's a major reason why. Sekiro is very different than Elden Ring in that it was a very experimental title. That game was not meant to be a new chapter for From Software. Think of it as an extremely glorified test subject that paved the way for what we received in Elden Ring. It was a one-time deal to see how the public felt about a major shift from the classic Souls formula. And there's one major aspect about Elden Ring that shows why we can't have this mindset, and that is franchising. You see, Elden Ring is that new step forward. It is the next chapter in From Software's catalog. Elden Ring is not a one-off game, it is the future. So when we talk about DLC, we need to keep in mind that they have a lot of plans for this game. You may have heard recently about a new deal where Bandai Namco, the publisher of Elden Ring, reached out to fantasy author Brandon Sanderson about potentially working on a new project together. Now obviously if they were to work together, that project is years away, but it shows the invested future of evolving From Software and their games, while under the umbrella of Bandai Namco. And as you guys know, Bandai Namco is From Software's home turf. That's the company they work the most with, so we can expect much more content when under their guidance. And if we look at it from a business standpoint, this makes the most sense as well. Elden Ring has been their most successful game of all time, by a long shot, and it would be a massive missed opportunity if they weren't to capitalize on that. I'm sure the shareholders expect it, and From Software are the type of company as well that are going to want to show their thanks to the community by giving them something they want. If we even use Sekiro as an example, that game didn't have DLC, but after it won Game of the Year, From Software still took the time to give us a free update with some fresh content. So when it comes to Elden Ring, I don't think DLC is a question of if it's going to happen, but what form will it take? And to answer that, we need to look to the world of the game. Elden Ring has already gone under 2 major updates that added more content to the game. And I think that's a good measure to assume that they're going to be adding more and more as time goes on. Small little updates, not the size of major DLC, but enough to give us a reason to maybe do another playthrough or come back to the game after a break. And I think we have some very strong evidence for this, specifically the Collisseums. If you guys don't know, there are 3 major Collisseums around the world of Elden Ring that definitely seem like they should be accessible. There's one in Leyndell, one in Caelid behind the giant warrior jar that we thought was going to open after we beat the jar's soldiers, but didn't. And then one in Limgrave with a ghost that strongly hints that this is going to be opening sometime in the future. He says, "All I wanted to do was fight, to fight as a warrior to the last. So why, O guidance of grace, will this door not open?" So it shows that From Software are aware that they are closed, and know that we want to enter. If this was simply cut content, then that ghost wouldn't exist. But the fact that these are Collisseums is very important. Back when it was announced that there would be no solo host invasions in Elden Ring, it sent the PvP community into a frenzy. And we thought that with this new design choice, the only way to compensate us and guarantee that we're still going to have access to fair duels was to create a PvP arena. Arenas have been present in all the Dark Souls games, and with Elden Ring being their magnum opus, it kind of seemed like a no-brainer. And when we all saw these Colosseums for the first time, we figured that's exactly what they were. But unfortunately, they're inaccessible. But I would bet the house that these are going to be opening at some point, whether that comes in the form of a paid DLC or some small free content in an update. It definitely hints that there's more to come. But now let's talk about the thing that most people want. Paid DLC the size of the Old Hunters or the Ring City, that adds new areas, new bosses, and a lot of new weapons and armor. This is the kind that I hesitate to say will definitely happen, because unlike the Colosseums, where we have near concrete proof, This requires a bit more speculation, because if we're going to be adding entire new levels to the game, we're going to have to dive into the lore a bit. So let's get speculating. If we take a look at the trend in past From Software games, their DLCs have all been offshoots of the story, something happening simultaneously as the events of the game go on. Now, all the endings of Elden Ring that we currently know of can in some capacity set up for a continuation, with the most likely contender being the Flame of Frenzy ending. However, I don't think the DLC would take place after the events of the game. With Elden Ring being their next big franchise, I do think we're going to see another installment, so I want to talk about the DLC somewhere else. So if we look at things that can be present within the game itself and the events before the ending, we have a few possibilities. As many of you probably know, there is an ending that was cut that revolves around Gideon Ophnir's questline. We don't know what the original triggers for that questline were. However, a lot of people speculate that DLC could bring that quest to completion, kind of like what we saw with Dark Souls 2. But if we're going to talk about room within the lore and the world, then we need to talk about the most likely candidate, Miquella. Let me give you a quick rundown on Miquella's lore. Miquella is the twin brother of Malenia, the Empyrean children of Marika and Radagon. However, Malenia and Miquella were cursed at birth. As you know, Malenia was cursed with the Scarlet Rot. Miquella was cursed to forever be a child. However, despite his eternal childhood, he is still revered as the most fearsome Empyrean, one of the most powerful beings in all of the lore. The lands between is ruled over by the influence of several outer gods, but Miquella managed to devise a way to restrict their influence. But the interesting part about Miquella is that in an attempt to recreate the Erd Tree, he created his own Halig Tree, and underwent a long slumber within an egg inside the tree, so that one day he could hatch into a full god. But as we know, Mohg the Lord of Blood snatched the egg from inside the tree, and took Miquella for himself so that one day he could become his consort. But we can find Miquella after defeating Mohg, still within his egg yet disrupted mid-process. It definitely seems like we were supposed to do something with Miquella, but at this current point in time, all we can do is look. So what does this mean for DLC? If you guys have done Fia's questline, then you know that there's a point where we can touch her and enter her dream while she slumbers. People think this is going to be the same case with Miquella. It was recently discovered by Lance McDonald that there was an entire cut feature from the game that involved us collecting dreams from certain enemies around the map. In addition to this, Garden of Eyes discovered some cut content with Miquella, where that he is also the character we hear about several times known as Saint Trina. Saint Trina has a very close tie to sleep and dreams. And if you guys have done most of Gideon's quests, you know that Miquella is the character he knows the least about. So the theory goes that in the DLC we're going to enter Miquella's dream, do everything involved with that, bring the knowledge back to Gideon Ophnir, and unlock that cut ending. And I gotta say, I kinda buy into that theory as well. It definitely seems like a part of the lore that was supposed to play a heavy role in the game, but didn't. And there's always the possibility that if we do get DLC in the form of a paid level, it could be something completely separate like Dark Souls 3 that has absolutely nothing to do with the main story, like Ashes of Ariandel, but ultimately we're gonna have to wait and see. I am in the camp that we are gonna be getting DLC for this game, even though we didn't get a season pass revealed at the beginning. And I 100% believe that we're gonna be getting those Collisseums in a future update. But what do you guys think? Do you think we're gonna be getting DLC for Elden Ring, or do you think this is just a one-time game kinda like Sekiro? Either way though, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like on it and subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll catch you in the next one.